focus on is Somali, and we've created tip sheets, and I have examples of that I could show you that provide parents with very basic information related to toilet training, related to language skills, related to all sorts of things like this that are very practical, there and ready for use, and there's no cost to accessing this services. So one of the things, though, that we've really attempted to do is to reach out and to inform the Somali community of our existence and the fact that this is their community living Toronto and an organization that's ready to work and to partner with them so that we can help to meet the needs of any individuals with an intellectual disability that live within the Somali community.
Thank you. One of the things that I notice within the community is, especially since many Somalis moved to this part of the world, especially Canada and Toronto, it is the rise of children suffering autism, and we didn't know, or I was not aware of it, the disease autism back in Somalia, or maybe the child was not diagnosed properly, but. And I know it's a medical question, but I'm sure you're familiar with that, being one of your, especially the families that need the support for children who are suffering this. Can you describe a little bit about that? And we know there's a number of our communities and families who have a child with autism.
Yeah, excellent question. In fact, we've noted, as you have, over the last decade, a dramatic increase in the number of individuals who are diagnosed with autism. And it's not necessarily that the incidence has increased, it's that our ability to diagnose it has improved. So as an organization, we've been working for decades with people with autistic features, but we haven't diagnosed it or labeled it as such. It was generally referred to as an intellectual disability. As we become more and more sophisticated in our ability to support people and intervene, we know there are certain things that we can do that are more effective with people who are expressing autistic features. And we've been able to work in partnership with other organizations like Surrey Place Center to integrate that into our interventions with individuals. So there's been an increase, as you've noted, in the diagnosis of that intellectual disability.
Thank you. And I also do understand there is financial support from the Ontario government and also other provincial government.
Yes.
Can you explain what these are and how families can receive that support?
The primary funding for community living is provincial. It's from the Ministry of Community and Social Services, and we also receive some funding from the City of Toronto for early childhood programs. As well, we get some federal funding, United Way funding, when we also fundraise in the community. When families come to us, we help them maneuver the system and to find and to access the funding that they're entitled to in community. And one of the things that a family in Ontario is entitled to is a thing called the Ontario Disability Pension Plan. And it's not a large amount. It could be as high as about $1,000 a month, but it's a critical support out there that individuals with intellectual disability are entitled to access. In addition to that, the government provides particular funding for various groups. For example, there's a program called Passport that was originally developed to support youth and young people who are transitioning from childhood into adulthood and moving from school-based supports into the community and providing funding so that they could have day programs to meet their needs. We have other programming and supports related to supported home share, another government-sponsored program. All of that to say that if a person out there was wishing to gain further understanding of what's available, they could contact Community Living Toronto, and that's one of the things that we would help them with.
Thank you. And another question that I want to ask you, also, it is a challenge when a child finishes school and still needs training and support to be part of the larger community. What can community living do for people when they finish school and they want to move on, but they still have the symptoms and they require assistance?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the programs that we're most proud of is a program called Youth to Work, and it provides that critical support of what I would call a young person transitioning from school into adulthood, and specifically focusing in on job and employment readiness kinds of skills. But depending again on the level of that person's ability and functioning, we have other supports that are available. For example, we have day programs where people that have fairly severe and profound disabilities who would never be able to work in community but can come out and participate in a social program and artistic programs that we've developed throughout the community. So we've been able to adjust and customize those to the individual. And with that in mind, one of the services that we provide that we're most proud of is a thing called person-centered planning, person-directed planning. And that really is helping to work with the family and the individual and the circle of support, friends and relatives, anybody who knows that young person, to create a plan and a roadmap for getting there that will guide them into the future.
Because you're doing such a brilliant job, especially supporting the families and the children who are suffering different kinds of disabilities. If someone wants to join your organization, volunteering, and they want to be part of your great work that you're doing for the community, how can they apply or how can they join?
There are many ways, and one of the beauties of the size and the magnitude of our organization is that I would say those opportunities are endless, but we're a membership organization. We're a membership-based organization. So when a family approaches us for service or support, one of the things that we offer them is an opportunity to become a member. And you can become a member by donating any amount of money. It could be $1 or it could be $100. It doesn't matter what it is. But something that would express basically their desire to be part of the organization. We also have, as I indicated earlier, about 900 volunteers. And those volunteers are involved in many different ways as board members, as people who oversee and guide the organization, as community leaders, as special friends, big brothers, big sisters, as artistic coaches, as sports focused and social recreational leaders. There are all sorts of different ways that a person can become involved at the volunteer level. And then obviously at the staff level, we employ 1,300 people to do this work, and we couldn't do it without the recruitment and retention efforts that we've undertaken across Toronto to attract new employees. So I would invite anybody in the Somali community who's interested in pursuing a career in the developmental services sector to call and to find out what it would take to acquire the credentials or the qualifications if they already don't have those. We have lots to offer, but we have as much to learn. And it's through that we become a better place and a richer service support experience. And that's been the case in the last year as we've attempted to bridge relationships and to build our capacity to respond to the cultural needs of Toronto as we know and understand it today. In that regard, working with the Somali community and with the leaders within that community to understand what families need and how we can best meet that need is a critical piece of where we're going. Having the opportunity to speak with you and to speak to the Somali community through Omni is an incredible opportunity to say we're open for business and we're very, very interested in working in partnership. This is your organization. It's my organization. It's ours. And one of the things that they'll find if they do so is that there's a circle of support, people there who understand their struggle. Anybody who's lived with, loved and cared for a person with an intellectual disability knows what that's like. It can be very, very isolating, very, very difficult, very challenging. We don't want anybody in our community to do that alone. And that's where becoming a member can make a huge difference.